Welcome to Brightly, You Radiant Being, the show that wildly recognizes, encourages, and invests in the radiance we all carry so you can shine your brightest. Each episode, we share soul-driven advice and topics to help you live more brightly in mind, body, and spirit. Through sharing our experiences, friendship, and passions, we hope to impact you to step more brightly into yourself, inch by inch.
Love it. Hi, Tracy.
Hi, Amy. So I'm real curious, how did controlling your life go these past couple of weeks? Are you a small business? Are you a conglomerate? Have you completed your SWOT assessment? Are you fully risk analyzed?
So I have completed my SWOT analysis and I started a gap analysis.
Ooh.
Yeah, I have not completed that. So I've got the present situation where I want to be. And then of course the gap is how do you what do you need to do? Who do you need to be to get there? So I'm still kind of in the midst of that. So it definitely has, I wouldn't say it's taken over my life. It's not controlling me, but I would say it's also not one of those things where, when you hear something and it's all bright and shiny, and then 2 weeks later, you've forgotten about it. This one has really, like we both are like, yeah, our
Look,
total lives. Yeah. But this is something I feel serious about and am excited about. So I am a small company, not a conglomerate, not yet. The other thing is too, that I feel like, there's a huge difference between being in the driver's seat of something and so that you can control how you react to things, you control what you do the next day, you can control your attitude, but you're not under control of someone else, nor are you trying to control someone else, right?
Ooh,
So
that's important. Because we equated control as to being the CEO of your own life, right? And nobody wants the CEO of a different life or of a different business controlling their entire life, right? Because, well, I mean, do you want to hear a not at all validated or confirmed, not so fun fact?
I always.
So on TikTok, I ended up on the subsection of TikTok around burnout. And there was a woman who was sharing that burnout can take 3 to 5 years to heal from.
Oh, dear God.
And that resonated with me so deeply because we talk all the time on the show about how we're not perfect with the things we talk about. We're not experts. We're trying these things ourselves, right? And we're just sharing our experiences or what we've learned and are looking into or want to try. And so for me, as much as I love goal setting, as much as I love the SWOT analysis and the gap analysis and being the CEO of your own life, it's so abrasive and I just run from it, or I might do a part of it, but then as you said, get distracted and see the next shiny thing. And I think it's because I'm still healing from my burnout that brought me to my current role where I'm very comfortable and very happy and well taken care of. But I think I was so under someone else's control for a whole year of my life. And didn't have any choices and didn't have any say in anything, couldn't plan anything, afraid about, my paycheck, my livelihood, that now that I do have that control, I don't want to make a choice. And so
wow, that is what an insight, Tracy. And I don't know that I would have made that analogy, but I think burnout is insidious and it can show up in a lot of different ways.
Good word, insidious.
It's kind of Harry Potterish for some reason. I don't know why.
So for me, burnout comes from taking on too much from others, right? What is given to you, but especially from ourselves, because I chose to accept that which was given to me, right? It's easy
That's true.
to say, it was my responsibility, it was my job, I had to pay the bills, but I could have chose to quit and attempt unemployment or attempt to find part-time, right? Like there were so many choices.
That's a hard choice to make.
Yes, they weren't easy, but I had more choices than I probably alluded to. But so I was putting a lot of pressure on myself to try and make the best of the situation, try and get out of the situation, try and control what I could in the situation. But it's just, I was exerting so much control on my life. Like, so somebody else was controlling a huge portion of my life, and whatever he wasn't, I was overly controlling myself. I was trying to fill and trying to do. And it wasn't coming from a place of being the captain of your own soul, right?
Yeah.
It was more, I was doing things because I could, not because I wanted to, right? Like this is an area that he didn't have a say over. And so even if I wanted to stay home and rest, I was going to go out and do something, or this is how I was going to spend my money, or this is how I was going to spend my time. Or I would, Netflix binge, like anytime I did get a day off, instead of using that in a restorative manner, I would just completely shut down, which again, I probably had to in a way for what I was dealing with, but it was still a choice. But in the control episode, I was wondering, so there may be people listening who maybe resonated a little too excitedly with, ooh, I get to control my life. Ooh, I get to be my own CEO. Ooh, I get to set more goals and do more things and write more words and set more charts and more routines and more schedules. And there may have been those of us that maybe rebuffed it with glee and was like, I ain't controlling nothing. And that made me just like wonder, especially you that you're going through it. And I love the episode and what we took from it. But it made me wonder, like, where do you need to rebel a little in your life? Like, it made me think at the time of opposites, right? Like the opposite of control in my head. And this is not at all true, but control and rebellion, right?
No, I love that. And I know that I've said this before. I actually love duality and I love that dichotomy. And I believe that you can rebel and be in control at the same time. And I believe that maybe the things that you're controlling are a rebellion to something else.
So do you want to rebel?
Well, I feel like that's actually more my happy place is being kind of the rebel and not so much. I feel like I give off an aura of good girl, follow the rules, maintain harmony, things like that. But actually, this is what I go back to. And this is a very odd, story, but this is what I go back to. I'm in high school. Let's go back far, long ago.
So I'm in high school.
So I'm in high school. I think it's my senior year. I'm walking by the vice principal. And let me tell you something. The principal may not know what's going on. The vice principal always knows what's going on. At least that's how it was in our school. And he looked at me and he goes, I know you. I see you.
See a witch? What was that meant to me?
No, seriously. Because I knew exactly what he meant. Because I was doing good in school. I was getting good grades. I would skip. And back in the day, folks, it was called skipping. So I would
party.
I went to school probably half the time that it was actually in session. And I was just like, I don't feel like it. I want to stay home. I wasn't even doing like rebellious things. I was staying home and reading or like going for walks. But so within my rebellion, I was also kind of smart about it because I would call up the school. Back in the day. You could just, so I'd call up the school and I'd say, hello, this is Joan Kennedy. Amy's not feeling well today. She won't be in school. And they were fine with it. So
it's interesting I don't, how the descriptive words you used a moment ago, I wouldn't disagree with those. Like, I wouldn't say like, no, you're not a good girl, but I'd be like, they wouldn't be what I would choose. And I wouldn't choose rebel at all, though that also, I'm not saying it doesn't fit. I would pick you're a free spirit. And so I think it all just comes down to language
Yeah,
and
semantics.
how like rebel and rebelling has always had a negative connotation, right? They're on the fringe of society. They're the outcasts. They're the bad kids.
See, not
I'm
to
not a
me.
rebel.
Oh,
Well, but like
see,
even
and
you said, like I was a good girl and I wasn't doing anything wrong in my rebellion.
no. What I said is people looked at me and saw
Yeah.
someone who they thought
Okay.
was this good person, play by the rules. And even in my work life, I feel so maybe it is semantics, but now in my head, I've always considered rebels as like, yes, you go. Like, I love a good rebel.
Me too. And so why is that? Do you think, have you ever thought of that before? Why do you think you love a good rebel? I love that wording.
Because I like questioning the status quo. I like pushing the boundaries of expectations of like other people's opinions. I like the fact of just saying, just because something's always been done this way doesn't mean it's right. And sometimes you have to be the rebel to do something different to prove it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. Because one of my questions is going to be like, is rebelling bad, right? Like the rebels are always portrayed as like the end of Greece, right? Like Olivia Newton standing, like she's in the all black cat suit with the leather coat, right? And like she joined the bad kids, the tardy kids, and it's just I love how you viewed it as someone who questions and who possibly is making their own choices. So I typically, kind of viewed it as like the type A, goody good in control. And then on the flip side, the rebel kind of meant the opposite, right? Like that's what the stereotype paints it as. But a couple of years ago, I read a book by Gretchen Rubin called The Four Tendencies.
Yeah.
And she breaks down personality types or people into kind of like 4 types. And you can take a test if you want. And I'm sure, like it's not meant to be like, this is who you are forever, but like, what do you resonate with the most? So the first one is upholder, which is let me backtrack. So the 4 tendencies are around expectations and what motivates you and what drives you around expectations. So the first personality type is the upholder. They're motivated by inner and outer expectations, and they meet both. That means they set their own goals and they meet them. They don't lie to themselves. They don't baby themselves. They don't make a promise and break a promise to themselves. Like they say what they're going to do and they do it to both their boss and to themselves. Then you have the obliger. That's the person that doesn't really meet their own internal expectations. They resist their own internal. But if there's an external expectation set on them, they'll meet that. And so that even
really
means
hate being an obliger. I'm just going to tell you that.
I don't know if that is you though. So for the obligers, that means like, let's say you set an exercise goal or a workout goal, or you set a goal, you need to like, well, I'm going to go to the gym every day, but only if my best friend Rosie comes with me. Yeah. Right. And so if Rosie were to text you and be like, oh, sorry, I can't make it to the gym today. You're like, oh yeah, me neither. Right. Like, because without that external expectation, you don't have a drive to meet that goal because you're resisting your own internal goals. But as soon as somebody says like, I want an accountability partner, will you be it? Suddenly you show up for yourself, right? And you show up for them as well. Then you have the questioner, which you kind of described as the rebel earlier, but the questioner, my most annoyed person in work settings, in well-behaved work settings where they're competent, qualified people who do checks and balances and have things done. The questioner meets their own inner goals just fine. And they question everything else around them. Why should I do this? Why do you do that? Why are we?
You know what? That's so funny because I feel like I am an obliger or I was an obliger, but I feel like I have a questioner tendency.
Well, so then we come to the fourth tendency. And it's the rebel. This is what she calls the rebel. And I even think about this when we first started talking about this as a topic for the show. It wasn't until just a few hours ago when something reminded me of it. But so the rebel is more like la 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 la. They resist all expectations.
Inner and external.
They go that free spirit. I want to read a book today. I'm going to follow my passion. I'm going to end world hunger. And this is now my mission today. And so it's not to say that they don't have drive. It's not to say that they don't achieve their accomplishments, but where that fire comes from, you just don't know. And so for me, it was really funny. So when I read this book, a couple of other people at the office that I did lunches with occasionally had also read the book. And so we were just talking and I was like, okay, well, why doesn't everybody guess what they think everyone else is? And everybody thought I was an upholder. And I was like, wow. This facade has worked.
Yes, you present as an upholder. I know you're not.
I project as an upholder well, and that is because I do have really high expectations for myself and others at work. But I also, if something's not due, if something's not urgent and something else comes up, or I'm just not feeling it that day, I'll move that deadline. I'll move it. And unless somebody else is like, ooh, I really need that because that's going to affect XYZ in my life, I will continue to move it.
So I thought you were a questioner. Are you a rebel?
I'm a rebel. So here's a quote from Gretchen. Rebels can do anything they want to do. For rebels, the ability to choose is so important that sometimes they make a choice even when it's against their own self-interest or it's not what they prefer, just to reassure themselves that they can make that choice.
Oh my gosh.
And so I don't even think my internal drivers are around expectations. I think it's more around, and I've heard this is true for Virgos too, but like if I'm going to do something and I'm all set to do it, I'm all queued up to do it, I'm motivated, I'm ready, I'm interested, I want to do it. And then somebody comes and tells me to do it, I ain't doing it. I no longer want to do it. I was perfectly fine without your input. And now it's not getting done. No. And it's not even out of spite. It's not even conscious half the time, but it's about the choice, right? Like I was choosing to do it. And now that somebody else is like, oh, you really got to do that. And I was like, oh, watch. But so it makes so much sense that as I grapple with recognizing that I'm still healing from burnout, right? Like I thought I was cured by finding a great job. I thought I was cured by doing so many of the things our episodes are about, the meditation and the ritual and like all these different things. But that when I look at certain aspects of my life, I am still either refusing to make a choice or making certain choices just because I can make that choice. One of them is
that refusing to make a choice is really, really resonates with me. And I'm sorry, I'm going to be stuck there for a while, but tell me, what was one of the things that you were just going to say?
Well, so I have a new accountability partner, one of my colleagues, Mark. Somehow, as you do at a new job, you just find people, right? Like you just find the people that are into what you're into.
Yeah.
Talking. We don't remember how it happened. My cubicle completely bare. I've been laid off twice before. I don't bring personal things to work. I bring a purse and that's all I'm walking in and out with, right? Like you can keep my lunch. And so we don't even know, like with you, I walked into your office and I saw the quotes and I smelt the essential oils and like I saw your whole aesthetic and I was like, my friend, my people, right? Like, and so with him, we just started talking professional and personal development stuff and all this stuff. And so he recently asked if I'd be his accountability partner.
Nice.
And when talking about what do you hope to get out of this, right? Like he had very specific things. And I was just like, I have been refusing in a way to set goals in certain areas of my life. And I just had to realize like, I'm still being super productive of my time in a way I don't have to be anymore.
Oh,
I went from working 80 plus hours a week and not getting lunch breaks, dinner breaks, showing up to work at 6 a.m. and leaving at midnight and for what, right? Like, I don't have anything really to show for it at the time. And we weren't like some huge successful company. I mean, I'm thankful they didn't go under while I was there, but I lost so much ability to schedule my time, to take a class, to go out to dinner, to relax, to just think forward, right? Make a commitment, that once I did have that time, I have been holding on to it with a vice grip. And there's certain goals that require a level of accountability and commitment and time and effort. And I feel like when I think about them or even think about setting them, it's still from that 5 year ago mindset. It's still of that, like, no, we're not ready for it. And it's like, we just survived 2 years of a pandemic. We got nothing but time. Like we are severely behind at this point.
Yeah,
Like,
that's so interesting. So when you told him that, what, like, did he have advice?
well, I know he listens, so if he did, I apologize for not being able to quote it. You know, we kind of boiled it down in the moment that for me right now, there's kind of a hierarchy. So as we joke, I do the level 10 life. I can't have 10 goals in 10 areas running concurrently every day of the week, right?
I believe we've been trying to tell you that for a couple of years now.
Lifetime. And so I said, you know, there's a hierarchy right now and some other things I do want to achieve first. And so right now, like, I want to be held accountable to those things while being held accountable that I have to at least set a goal, right? Like, it doesn't have to be something that has to be achieved, right? And then when I get to that point of like, these things have been done, and then now this is on deck, that I am then held accountable for, where are your SMART goals? What are your action items? What are you going to talk about each week, right? And so, yeah, I mean, it's a little awkward. It's a little uncomfortable. It's one of those things that it's like, it's abrasive. And so that's just telling me I have to lean more into it, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's not feeling abrasive because it's wrong. It's feeling abrasive because I want to avoid it and run away from it.
Yeah. And it's change. And
Yeah. Yeah. So sometimes, like I said, you try and achieve control by just choosing a choice. And sometimes it's not even the choice you want, but it's the choice in front of you. And so it feels like a choice, right?
Ah.
And so I don't know. I feel like, you know, we talked about rebelling or rebel and controlling, rebelling as being a dichotomy. And I think rebelling is a form of control.
I think you're right now that, yes, I think you're right.
And I just wonder, like, how much is rebelling even freedom then?
Okay. I feel like this is gonna, like, 2:00 in the morning, I'm gonna be like, aha. But what's coming to me right now is rebelling isn't freedom, because rebelling is actually, it feels like a fight almost, right? Even though I said it's a way to push, because you are constantly like pushing back on something or fighting against something or choosing a different direction. And so it's not freedom. You're right. At the beginning of this, I would have said, no, being a rebel is being free. And now
I think we're both right, though. So let's think of it this way. I think there are high vibe and low vibe ways of rebelling, because you brought up a great point earlier that it's going against the status quo. It's doing what you feel is right, right? So I think there's a level of self-awareness and intention. You have to intentionally rebel in your life, right? Like, so for me, my form of rebelling is like, I know I've been stagnant in these two areas, and my form of rebelling is going to be to lean into it, right? And that's, I'm going to shake up my own status quo, right? Like, it's not society telling me what to do here or there. I have no pressure. I have
so you're rebelling against yourself.
Yeah, I'm rebelling against I told him I've been a little too comfortable with being content, and that life can get dramatically better. And yeah, hell, it can get a lot worse, but it can be different. It doesn't have to be this for the next 40 years.
Okay. I just have to say this. My mom, and just forgive me if I've quoted this before on the show, but my mom was, she was very young, and they had a coffee. They called it a coffee coffee clutch, something, coffee clutch. I don't know. They'd meet clutch, like a clutch of chickens, like a clutch of people.
Okay.
So they would meet and have coffee. and talk about things. And somebody asked my mom something, and this was when she had young children, and she said, I'm content. And another friend said, Joan, only cows are contented. Yeah. So
Ouch.
I know. So my mom I think she had the same reaction. And I'm one to say, I think it's fine to be contented. But if you have come to the realization that you're too comfortable in your contentment, that's something different.
And I feel like you don't want every area of your life to be vibing at a 10 at all times. That sounds exhausting. And then where do you go from there, right? Like, I think if you look at all the different facets of our life or different responsibilities, different relationships, different interests, there are going to be some areas of your life, especially depending on age, like where you're really solid and content in your career. And that's perfect because you're nearing retirement and you're winding down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when you're 20 and you're entry level, does being content in your career align with your goals, right? Is that going to get you where you need to be?
I think that's a really good point, especially with different ages of different people. I really like that point, that it depends on where you're at with being content in one aspect of your life and then wanting to just rebel in another aspect.
And I think it's why so many people have midlife and quarter life crises, because in society, we end up, if your primary drivers and motivators and the expectations you're following are that of the majority, that means the biggest excitements in your life are in this small window in your 20s. And then it just all roller coasters downhill. And potentially you have children, right? And then you're on the roller coaster of their life. And so you feel busy and you're, ups and downs and contents and like highs and lows with it, all that. But then your kids leave and then you're left with that empty nest syndrome, right? And I think that's because like you've just been like clustered into all these different areas of life. Whereas I feel like if you were to rebel against that part of society and like consciously choose your expectations and the different areas and how you want your life to be, and then you control and are the CEO of your own life within your rebellion, maybe your life will have clusters of peaks and valleys together over 100 years versus like everything happening in a decade.
I feel like that is my life, is clusters of peaks and valleys in every decade, because I certainly, I feel like I'm probably coming up on a 3/4 life crisis, but not quite yet. But because even though I agree with what you said, for many people, it wasn't, for the most part, what I went through or have been going through.
Well, and there's this there's a large number of millennials, people around my age, that aren't married, don't have a lot of long-term relationship experience, may or may not have kids within that, and are now kind of looking to start it in their 40s, right? Like, because for me, when I was in my 20s and my friends started getting married and having babies and doing the career thing, I was like, I am a baby. I am a child.
Isn't there that TikTok? I'm a baby.
Yes. I love it. We're going to post that one now. I just, in my mid-20s, I thought I hadn't met anybody. And so that also, I had no impetus, right? Everything I had in me was to rebel against the status quo at that time and be like, I'm just going to focus on my career. But I'm not a career driven person. I'm a soul driven person, right? I'm a relationship driven person. And so while my career and my schooling has moved on and has hit different levels, I didn't have like these huge peaks of where like I entered the C-suite, right? Like I didn't have these huge milestones where I became like a Nobel winning author or scientist or something.
Most people don't.
It feels like when you're on Instagram, everybody's achieving
right?
I nailed it by 28. And so for me, like I just kind of like I've just been content with taking it slow and making intentional choices, but I've also rebelled in a way by being intentional about putting certain things on the back burner, right? And so it's kind of like, if you identify as a rebel or if you identify as somebody who's just super in control, how do you just reflect on how you set and achieve your goals? And if that's really in line with kind of a holistic view of your whole life, or if it's only really helping you in certain areas.
Ooh, that's a really good point. Yeah, I like that.
That's what it's not even Thursday. And we're talking about what the hell are you doing with your life? Like, look at this. Well, you might be listening on Thursday. So if you are, what the hell are you doing with your life?
So do you feel like you've done that? Like, are you doing that? Are you in the throes of looking at that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, and I have an accountability partner every Monday. I got to be prepared to talk about what I did the last week for a rebel. Ouch. But I really like and value and respect this person. And they also, when I shared the podcast with him, if he listened, I thought maybe he'd listen to one. He's listening to them in order, Amy. Like, he's so supportive, and he's really on board with what we talk about, what we do. And I'm sure he's very well versed and could probably join us in these things. But so this is someone who's put effort into me. And so, I mean, this is sad to say, like, I'm going to put effort into him by putting effort into me.
Well, there is something to be said about that.
Yes.
I mean, that is a huge driver.
Yes. Right. Yeah. So and I do have external drivers and expectations, but it's not the typical thing. It's not just because a colleague asked me to do something or is expecting something. Like, there's a different passion and motivation behind it, and what I get from this relationship. And I look forward to learning from what he's going through as well. But yeah, I mean, I don't remember where we plan the arc of conversation to go from here, but like, I mean, I'm not saying don't rebel in your life, but like, see it where maybe it's being a hindrance.
I like that. And I think that's a lovely place to stop. Well, not forever, but
stop, Tracy.
So
stop.
Yes, no, I liked it. Hopefully everyone who's listening liked it. And if you did like it, share it with a friend. And if you've got some time, give us some love on your preferred platform with a rate, review, and subscribe. You can reach out to us via Instagram and YouTube under The Brightly Podcast, or via email at brightlypodcast@gmail.com.
And with that, we hope you have a bright and beautiful day.